let's talk Canon RF 50mm f1.8 lens. So let's get into it. First off, I bought this lens about a week ago to pair with my Canon EOS R8, and I've been really happy with it. I got it on sale for about $160, and you can find it from about that price to about $200. So pretty cheap as far as lenses go. It's super bright at f1.8 and is at a common millimeter range of 50mm. Now I've been really happy with 50mm. I've never owned a 50 before, and it's really been great. Now I've been using with a full frame camera, so it's been wider than I'm used to. I've been using a APS-C size crop sensor and a Super 35 sensor on my R7 and Blackmagic Pocket 6K. So I've been really happy with the full frame experience on the Canon R8. Now, this is a full frame lens, but it doesn't mean you have to use it with a full frame camera. I've also really loved using it on the R7, even though it's more like 80mm with a 1.6 times crop factor of the R7. So overall, this has been a great range and is really bright. Because it's a prime lens and doesn't have any physical zoom, it is able to have a lot sharper results without being as expensive. Now, I have noticed some issues with the lens. It isn't as sharp as I'd want it to be, but for the price, it's awesome. And there hasn't been a ton of issues with chromatic aberration, and it has enough iris blades that bokeh is nice and rounded, and it just looks great in general. So overall, with my use of this lens over the past week, I would recommend it. If you're using either a crop sensor or a full frame sensor, it really works well. Now, autofocus isn't super fast, but it's fast enough for most situations. And if you're wondering, the autofocus actually comes out of the lens a little bit, so it's not all internal. So that's something to note. Not really a factor in its performance, but it does physically move out of the lens for focusing. And there is some focus breathing for sure. So for video, there is an issue. Also for video, if you're wanting to have a stabilized lens, this is not stabilized, so pairing with the Canon R8 is pretty shaky. So that's something to note. But for photos, this lens has been great. It's super bright, as I said earlier, and it's pretty sharp for the price point. As far as chromatic aberration goes, it's definitely more severe around the edges, but not really an issue, especially if you're doing landscapes or anything other than basically text or trying to cause problems with focus charts and stuff like that. So overall, chromatic aberration is low. It's pretty sharp for the price. No image stabilization, but that's fine for photos. Just bring up your shutter a little bit, and it's at a great focal range. For this price, you can't really beat this lens. It's been awesome. Now, it has an RF or EF mount depending on which lens you buy. I have the RF version here. So if you have an RF camera, get the RF. If you have an EF camera, get the EF. So overall, it's a great lens. And if you want a 50mm lens, this is probably the one to get started. Now, if you want to get a better 50mm lens, there definitely are better options. For example, the Canon RF 50mm f1.4 and the 50mm f1.2 are also better options for low light performance, but they're more expensive, coming in around $400 and over $1,000. So definitely more expensive. But if you're just getting into photography or just want a cheap, good lens, this is the lens for you. Well, that's it for this video. If you have any questions about the Canon R8 or any of the other gear I use, please leave it in the comments below and I will answer your question. Also, if you want to pick up this lens up for yourself or anything else, check out the Amazon affiliate links in the description below. It doesn't cost you anything and really helps out the channel. Also, if you could please consider subscribing, that would help out a lot. Well, that's it, and I'll see you in the next one.